What if I told you that McLaren was disqualified not for cheating, but for being too fast? Today we unravel the technical scandal that could change how justice is applied in Formula One. The night of the 2025 Las Vegas Grand Prix had all the ingredients to be one of the most memorable days of the season. Formula One's return to the iconic street layout under the Game City lights promised spectacle, and McLaren seemed up to the challenge. Since free practice, both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri showed a competitive pace, dominating key sectors of the circuit and responding solidly to the complicated conditions of a slippery track, full of potholes and with lightly rolled asphalt. In the race, Norris shone with a meticulous performance, crossing the finish line in a solid second place, while Piastri closed in a valuable fourth position, consolidating the technical mastery of the MCL39. Everything pointed to another great result for the Woking team, leader of the Constructors' Championship, and with a Norris that reinforced its leadership in the Drivers' World Championship. But then everything fell apart. Hours after the competition ended, when the teams began to dismantle their garages and the international press was already writing their reports, an official notification from the FIA paralyzed the paddock. The McLaren 4 and 81 were disqualified for failing to comply with Article 3.5.9e of the 2025 technical regulations, due to excessive wear on the skid blocks. Those titanium plates installed under the bottom of the car that control the height minimal to the ground and protect the lower structure of the car. The reaction was immediate. What was supposed to be a night of celebration for McLaren turned into a bureaucratic nightmare. And not because of the technical fact itself, but because of the context that surrounded it. The differences detected in the measurements were minimal. In the case of Norris, an excess of just 0.12 millimeters in the right front plane, while Piastri presented a maximum deviation of 0.26 millimeters in the same sector. Tiny margins, virtually imperceptible to the human eye, that, under normal conditions, could have been considered within the operational tolerance range. But the FIA was categorical. The norm is the norm. Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, was one of the first to respond. Visibly upset during the appearance before the stewards, he defended that the infraction was the result of external circumstances. An unexpected bounce, porpoising, during the race that had not manifested itself in the previous sessions, a setup compromised by the adverse weather conditions on Friday, and a reduced time window to make altitude adjustments due to the limitation of free practice sessions. Even more serious was what happened in the second round of measurements. At McLaren's request, the plates were reanalyzed in the presence of the team's coaching staff and FIA technical delegates. The results were even worse. The wear and tear was greater than initially reported. An anomaly that had no logical explanation or recent precedents. Was it a mistake in the setup? Were there any manufacturing defects? Or was the abrasive, micro-bumpy Las Vegas asphalt really responsible? What is clear is that the punishment was disproportionate when compared to previous cases. In similar situations that occurred in 2025, other teams received only reprimands or fines, never a total disqualification. McLaren felt that a line had been crossed this time. That an exception had been made. To punish them. In the press room, rumors began to circulate. Some journalists pointed out that other teams had pushed for McLaren to be sanctioned, given the obvious technical dominance of the MCL39. Others leaked that the FIA had been targeting the British team for weeks for its daring interpretation of the technical regulations, especially with regard to the front suspension and the aggressive flat rake that benefited them so much on urban tracks. Amid the institutional silence of the FIA, McLaren did not officially appeal the sanction. But his fury was evident. The word injustice began to echo in the corridors of the paddock. And for fans, it wasn't just a disqualification. It was a worrying sign that the rules in Formula One don't always apply equally to everyone. The damage was done, and trust broken. McLaren's disqualification in Las Vegas was neither an accident nor an ambiguous interpretation of the regulations. It was a surgical strike, executed with the precision of a technical scalpel, using one of the oldest and at the same time most controversial rules in modern Formula One. The rule of wear of the skid blocks, the protective plates located under the floor of the car. This rule, originally introduced to prevent teams from dangerously lowering the car's height to the ground, has historically been an ambiguous tool, a safety meter, applied as punishment. The data prior to the Las Vegas GP had confirmed this advantage. McLaren was the only team that consistently managed to ensure that the greatest wear on its plates occurred in the front area, not the rear. This configuration, which most teams consider unstable or unviable, had been tamed by Woking engineers and turned into a fortress. But that fortress suddenly collapsed into the urban layout of Nevada. Why then, right on this circuit, did the sensors show excessive wear on the rear? For some rival engineers, the answer could lie in the asphalt and the type of low-speed corners of Las Vegas. These conditions amplify the vertical bounce of the car, and when this bounce occurs unexpectedly, a phenomenon known as porpoising, even the most sophisticated designs can suffer sudden impacts that erode the bottom plate beyond what was expected. However, here comes the most disconcerting element of the case. McLaren did not report severe porpoising in free practice or in the qualifying round. In fact, the available telemetry data showed a stable car without critical vertical bounces. So was it the race itself that triggered this extreme condition? Or was there a balance change in the car due to a poor setup choice for the second stint on hard tires? Even the most technical within the paddock do not have a clear answer. Added to this is another aspect that smacks of contradiction: precedent. Throughout the 2025 season, several cars showed similar wear values after races in equally extreme conditions. Without going any further, during the Singapore GP, 2 teams were warned for measurements at the limit, and there was no sanction. This reinforces McLaren's thesis. The sanction was not technical, but political. The commissioners, for their part, hid behind the literal wording of the regulations. It didn't matter that the wear was microns, nor that the intention was absent. The standard says that the blocks must measure at least 9.00 millimeters thick after the race, period. But when does a technical standard stop being an instrument of control and become a weapon of selective punishment? This is the dilemma that McLaren raised, although without making it explicitly public in the eyes of all the players in the championship. If the most advanced car, the one that leads the world championship with technical consistency, is penalized for a minor deviation with no room for interpretation, what prevents the same thing from happening to anyone in the future? Where is the criteria, the proportionality, the sportsmanship? This is the science of punishment in F1, a dangerous combination of pinpoint engineering and regulatory policy. And when a team like McLaren is penalized at the peak of its performance, the message is clear: being too perfect can also be cause for suspicion. In any professional sports structure, the regulatory body has the responsibility of ensuring that the rules are applied fairly, consistently, and transparently. However, after McLaren's disqualification in Las Vegas, the FIA's attitude was exactly the opposite. His silence was deafening. They did not offer a detailed press conference. They didn't answer questions. They did not explain precisely why the more severe sanction was applied when other similar, or even more serious, infractions during the same season had received considerably lesser sanctions or none at all. And that institutional omission did not go unnoticed. In Woking, the frustration was palpable. McLaren did not go to the Court of Appeals, but not because they considered the sanction valid. According to internal sources, the team understood that any appeal would be rejected under the same technicality that led to the punishment. What really hurt was the precedent that was set. For a team that had invested immense resources in polishing every technical detail, that led both championships after years of rebuilding, this episode was a brutal reminder that the terrain on which they compete is not always level. Beyond the technical, the feeling at McLaren is that they were used as an example. That his performance, his mastery, and his capacity for technical innovation had become uncomfortable. Some analysts even suggested that the punishment was a response to a deeper concern within the Formula One ecosystem. That McLaren was straying too far from the pack in terms of aerodynamic efficiency and mechanical consistency. And when one team dominates, the sport suffers if that dominance cannot be replicated or contained. Internally, McLaren reformulated processes. Simulations were intensified to predict plate wear under different scenarios. Post-race review protocols were reorganized. But no technical measures could repair what had been lost: trust. Because at the end of the day, Formula One is not only raced on the track. It is also disputed in offices, in deliberations, in public gestures, or the lack thereof. And when a team feels that its arguments are not only not heard, but are dismissed without a proportional analysis, the damage is institutional. The media environment also amplified tensions. Some journalists with direct access to the paddock reported that the FIA had been pressured by representatives of other teams to apply an exemplary sanction. Others spoke of a possible internal fracture within the FIA coaching staff regarding how the infringement was assessed. And while all this was happening, fans around the world were expressing their discontent with a sanction that, although legal, seemed deeply misaligned with the spirit of sports. The disqualification of Norris and Piastri for a difference of tenths of a millimeter on a wear plate raises a question deeper than any technical table. What is the real intention of the regulation? protect competitive integrity, or use its literalness as a control tool? Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.